Simon, and this is my work, A Living Man Declared Dead and Other Chapters, in which there are 18 chapters where I traveled around the world researching and recording bloodlines and their related stories. And it's an exploration of fate and what are the components of fate, and looking at the influences of geography, economics, politics, and chance on the narratives that construct histories and surround our lives, and looking at chaos in these narratives and questioning if there's some sort of order within it all. Yes. So absence plays a huge role in this project, and there were several people who I couldn't photograph for various reasons, and sometimes it was women who couldn't be photographed for religious and cultural reasons, or individuals who were in mandatory army service, or prison, or in a hospital suffering from some sort of illness that wouldn't allow them to sit in front of my camera. So you have all these the implications of life and what happens, and certain restrictions that would limit my access, and some people who didn't want to be associated with the narrative at stake. And those empty portraits stand in for where those people would have been in the ordering principle of the bloodline. And the portrait panel, where I systematically organize the members of a given bloodline, it's all structured according to an ordering principle, and there's a point person in each. And it's a mathematic equation, and sort of structured as such aesthetically as well. And then you have the text panel, and then the footnote panel, which is looking at the way in which information is distributed in a much more scattered form, and how we engage with stories and communication on the internet and in conversation, where you're going to jump from one thing to the next and forget something and then run off in another direction. And it's a much more random approach in its layout, in its design, in the way that the items within the footnote panel are photographed, and in the subjects themselves. And it's about all of these different ways of distributing and organizing information, sort of circling each other and going. It's not a read from left to right. It really is a read from middle to left to right, back to the start, and again, and kind of turning around in itself. Whenever I finish a work, in this work, it was clear to me when it had reached its end. First of all, I was out of money. I was completely exhausted. And it was important for me to have almost a short story literary type feel to it, and I didn't want it to get too expansive. I really wanted these each to feel like these small histories you could enter into in a very intimate and quiet way. So I've never worked with a message in mind, and I never would want to. It's really much more of looking into a broken space that flies off in so many directions, and within that highlighting the space in your mind that establishes judgment and creates answers and finds comfort in those answers, and how those answers can mutate and go against you, and how you can sort of just the malleable space of decision making, and to highlight that more than anything. It's less about the story and more about that space between text and image in the mind, where we create certain backbones that we live by and work by, and the vulnerability of that space. one thing about the work is how it registered when it was created, how it registered when it was exhibited, and how it registers now in different cultures as it travels around the world. So, for example, one of the pieces on view here is a piece I made in China, where I collaborated with the State Council Information Office, and they control much of China's identity in the foreign press, and they control the internet and all media distributions within China regarding any controversial events. And I decided to make my piece in China about this organization and collaborated with them and asked them to select a bloodline to represent China for the project. And they selected a middle-class family from Beijing. They gave me no further reasoning for their selection, and I went over there. It was more of a performance piece. I photographed everyone that they told me to. I also, in the footnote panel, photographed the media tower that they asked me to photograph, and then the gift bag they gave me when I left. And ironically, this same organization, when I exhibited the work in Beijing this past year, they censored the work. So I was unable to exhibit any of the text panels and several of the footnote panels, and one work, a piece regarding North and South Korea and their relationship, was censored in its entirety. So all of these gaps or absences were represented with black fields painted on the wall where the works would have hung. And so the work became an entirely other work. It was sort of like my first foray into abstract painting. And I had these black fields all over the walls, and you literally couldn't engage with the work in the form it was intended to be viewed in, because there was zero text. So it became this completely other experience. And so the works keep becoming something else with the passage of time and under different regimes. To come to Cherbourg?
No, to come to the exhibition.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I can't answer that. Anxious. I don't know. Labored.
With you?
Okay.